Good day, everyone. Whatever time it is, whatever day it is. Welcome to another episode of Tea with Rich. I am T, and I have to change the intro up because usually I say my co-host and my forever friend, but I have two co-hosts and two forever friends on here today. So if you're not watching the YouTube version, I would suggest you shut this shit down and go watch YouTube. But I have, of course, Rich Lyons, and our special guest today at T minus one more day and counting till retirement is Erik Dodier, my business partner of 30 years. For the record, everybody, Erik only found out he was going to be on about an hour ago, and Rich didn't even know I was bringing Erik on. So, Rich, how you doing this morning, buddy?
I'm good. I'm excited now. Come on. Having Erik on, this is like, come on.
Yeah, let's
Uh,
of course
he,
I'm
he, he was at the house the other day. How you doing, Erik?
good. Yep, we had a little coffee. Was it yesterday?
No, 2 days ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Erik
Yeah.
came over and spent an hour, and I made fresh coffee, and we just sit at the dining room table and essentially do what you and I do, Rich, which is shoot the shit. Um, but the big news, which this won't go up, you'll be a couple of weeks out by the time I post this. But Erik is, it's a Thursday, which I'm going to say, and Erik is officially retiring from 30 years and 2 weeks as a full-time employee with no other job of PixelMEDIA / RafterOne.
Yeah.
So, how you feeling, buddy? You got a day and 3/4 left.
Well, we all like our words, right? You've used this sabbatical word. I've been using I'm stepping away is my official term and transitioning. But yeah, so 30 years almost to the month T that 1994 to 2024 seemed like a good round number, and good. A lot of transition, a lot of things in the air changing, and it was just honestly a perfect time. Been in the works for a few months, and so here we are. Yeah.
That's awesome. What he's not telling you is that we talk every once in a while, and he has no idea how he's going to actually be spending his time. So we've been talking about sort of the different things that one can do to chew up time and reset. I'm hoping you take my advice, Erik, and do 90 days and at least relax until
How about
the
some
beginning
golf, baby? How about some golf?
Well,
We just
it's
talked.
funny, TJ. You said go over to the coaches club right up the street.
Yeah.
I literally went yesterday and
Yeah.
checked it out. Yeah, it's an indoor simulator thing, and yeah, so I
That's
wanted to check
awesome.
it out. So I'll probably maybe do some of that.
Yeah. They're the best Sims too. I forget what the devices are, but he's got 4 or 5 bays in there, and they're whatever those $75,000 trajectory things are that the PGA Tour uses.
That's cool.
Trackman.
Yeah, the
Trackman.
TrackMan. Yeah.
Yeah, creme de
Yeah,
la creme. Mark Troy's trying to get me to go down there. Mahoney's a member down there as well, just so you know. And then
okay.
Rico. Yeah, Tom's been down there a while. Rico just won again. It just got emailed this morning. One of the top 50 young coaches, golf coaches in America. He was ranked number 36 in the nation.
Wow.
That just actually came out yesterday and was emailed to us today. But
Well,
Rich, I literally just talked to you the other day. You know who else visited me? I don't know if you saw my LinkedIn post this morning, but Rob's first day of purposeful unemployment, Rob Garf, was yesterday. So Rob came
Nice.
up and spent the day with me. And we did the same thing, except yesterday I made the ceremonial cacao, and we literally just hung out and shot the shit for 5 hours, which is cool because everyone's hammering him for like
What's next? Sure.
all these other opportunities. And I was like, so he's telling me all of this stuff, and he's like, I already know what you're going to say, but I need to hear it. So it was pretty funny. So it was
all
good
right.
to
Well,
spend the day
per
with
usual,
Rob.
we're already off on already tangent TJ. So
Yeah,
this is just absolute
no,
classic. So
it's not.
great.
Well, it's
No,
funny that.
well, I wanted to go back to the coach club thing. It was a
Oh,
great
all
record.
right, back to Coach Club.
The
Back to
golf.
Coach Club.
It's
Go
it's
on.
gonna it's close enough to my house. It's gonna combine a couple hobbies, which is I bought an e-bike, so I can literally bike there. I can leave my clubs there, and I can meet people for coffee. I mean, it's like
Oh,
my
nice.
perfect. That's like a
I mean,
perfect.
is e-biking really biking? Like, are you actually getting exercise, or are you
Um,
just turning the motor on? I mean, I just
so
have to know.
Well, no, this is the deal. What they say is originally, I guess all the hardcore cyclists thought it was like a cheating, thing. But
Right.
what I think does is instead of going out and riding 4 miles, you ride 10. You just have.
Well, that's true.
So it just extends.
I bought my wife one because then she could keep up with me. Like, because I want, if I'm going for exercise, I want to like pedal my ass off, right?
Yeah,
And then
you can turn the battery off. It's all self-select. So
I'm just giving you shit.
yeah, no, I know, but it is good. I do try to turn the battery from turbo down to like off, then work my way up. There's about 4 different settings. It does have a throttle if you really need to, but that's kind of to get you off the gate if you're crossing a road or something. But yeah, no, it's good.
That's cool.
So I'm in.
No, but golf is. Have you played much golf? I mean, golf can be an obsessive. Just ask TJ. You can become obsessed.
Well, no, I don't, because I never get practice time or time to play. So I just sort of said, well, I'll just play the minimum. But if maybe the sim thing through the fall and winter will inspire me to do it in the summer. You know what I mean? That's probably the gig. Did your game actually improve in the sim when you started out in spring?
Yeah, noticeably improved. Well, you're actually, so people don't know, Erik and I are both lefties, and I golf righty, but Erik's a true lefty, and you're actually a good golfer. Your short game's a little messy, but you actually, we went out a month ago or 6 weeks ago, and you did awesome. You had a couple of flyers, so my handicap went down. Yeah, the sim helps. It helps you with muscle memory and the movement.
Right.
It's not the same trajectory and all of that stuff off of the mats, but you get to work on your backswing. You get to work on addressing the ball. You get to work on if you're coming in or out, and you get to work on your tempo. Like, that's really all it was for me, was tempo.
It's good to get the basics. I mean, and then you have something to practice.
Go to a sim, Julie? Like, you have a sim in your...
I have a sim in my basement, actually.
Oh, jeez, all right.
But I don't use it that much. I should use it more. I like playing.
When you buy these things, you probably use these things less,
Exactly.
Like, we'll get into my red light and my PEMF mat.
And part of it for me is, though, like, I'm going to go in my basement and hang out by myself and hit balls, right? I mean, if people come over, it's cool, but it's not as fun when you go somewhere, there's people, there's a vibe, you can have coffee. For me to go in my basement, it's like practice, right? So, but it's still... I had my wife down there the other day. She's getting into it, but my handicap's going up. I'm up to 11.5 now. I need to start the other way.
Stop talking.
Is there a special? I guess they have a TrackMan handicap that they can calculate that doesn't totally translate to outside because of putting and stuff. But anyway, T, that was a great suggestion, and honestly, it's close enough. It's got a cool social vibe. I can see myself doing that. A couple times a week. So.
And they talk to you like it's a key club thing, right? So you can go in like, but is it 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or something?
They keep it staffed enough, yes, if you want to go real early or stay late for the certain members, or whatever the membership thing, you can just get a key swipe. And I guess Goody goes, awesome. I worked for Chris Goodman goes there quite a bit. So
yeah, I know Mahoney's there. Mark Troy is who actually introduced me to it, and he wants me to join so that I can join the league. This winter over there. I'm gonna need something because I need to stay on my game. I actually golfed yesterday at the Wentworth in the afternoon. I did 1, 2, 3, and then just jumped on 10 and did the back 8.
Well, I'm assuming with the massive viewership of this podcast, I'll now be getting a phone call of free membership for calling it out. So
I don't know if we have any golf people.
Did I mention my e-bike brand? I mean, maybe I should hold off.
We'll start doing ads.
We got to I'm sure the advertisers will be reaching out. So,
how far is your ride to, like, as the crow flies? How far is it from your house to the coach club?
Oh, geez, 3 miles, 2 miles on an e-bike. Right. An e-bike, you average 18, 20 miles an hour, pretty steady. So it'll be like a little 10-minute ride, and it connects to the rail trails now I can get on, like all these railroads that now have become trails, so I can get onto that system real close by. So that's awesome. It's pretty neat. Yeah,
and they store your clubs there too. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep. So in the winter, they'll probably just sit there, So yeah. So I'm gonna get into that. Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I think it's a good use of time. We'll get to all of your accessories and we'll talk about health and 10X and all that stuff. But for anyone that doesn't know, in the Seacoast, New Hampshire or Boston area, Coach Club is a membership based golf sim. It's like a key club. It's actually staffed. During the day, you can get lessons. They're all TrackMan bays. There's one in Northampton, New Hampshire, and then he just opened one in Newburyport as well. And the dude that owns it, Rico, and the lady that I've met, Corey, they're absolute savages when it comes to coaching. So it's not just like a bar. It's literally for people that are serious. So if you're in Seacoast or even in north of Boston, the Newburyport one is, I think they just opened. It's actually pretty amazing. It's worth every penny. There's no better sim than a TrackMan, in my opinion. So, which is good.
So well, give me where do you want to go, T? There's
a lot of places that I want to go. Come on.
I was driving here, and he's like, "Hey, jump on." I'm like, "All right, here we go." So you mentioned it, and I'm like, "Well,
we've got. I don't know if you're ready to get into it, TJ, but I've got to hear some stories. Come on.
The best part is he was here on Tuesday, and I'm like, you should come on the podcast on Thursday. And he's like, no, I need like 9 months to like get myself cleansed. I was like, dude, I've been asking you to be on for 9 months, and you still haven't been on. Like, we're not going to do 9 more months. I actually think we can do one today, which is 2 days from it's time, or whatever your word of choice is, non-sabbatical. I think we do one. I think we could do like a half a dozen of these over the next year,
just to see how it's going. It has to be like what you think, like a month in, and see what's happening or something.
If the real journey here, right? Rob's about to. I don't know what Rob's plan is, but like people, what I've been diving into is like, how do you make these kind of transitions, right? I hate the word retirement, but it's the only word that people, you got to, if you're looking for books or podcasts, whatever, how to like make that transition. I've literally done this for 30 years. So that's the journey I'm on. And I'm honestly, there's days that my anxiety is like, wow, like how do you fill the space? It's already started to open up. Right. So, it's a little unnerving. Like literally my day was math. Get up at 4:30, go to the gym, get home, shower, quick, get to work, and just boom. Then the calls drive your day. Then, and all of a sudden now it's like, okay, now you have to manufacture your own. So we'll see.
Well, you got a lot of gadgets in the house. You got, you got on a pretty good health journey a year, maybe more than a year ago. Did you start that whole kind of transformational stuff like before or after you broke your ankle?
I think it's almost 2 years, to the week or so that I broke my ankle. But I think with the downtime of the ankle and how to heal, you go to YouTube and you search how to heal an ankle quick, right? And it gives you, and then that leads to, little other things, right? You start going down. And that's when I kind of started getting into like red light and all that. And that's when like Dana White came out with his thing and Gary Brecka. Right. And like, I'm like, wow, like there's a lot here. It's subtle, right? You got to be doing the other basics, diet and exercise, but this stuff kind of layers on. And I kind of dove in.
Well, you got a PMF map, a PEMF map. You got red light. You're a cold plunger. You actually probably other than Derek Barney, you might be the first like person I never suspected would cold plunge. But you like it. You still do it, right?
Yeah, I did it today. It's in the garage, right under my home office. I go down the garage and
like every day. How often you do it?
I mean, if I'm home and wake up at home, I do it every day. So only if I'm traveling. Mine's in my garage, so then I just bought like a chiller to keep it in the 45 to 50. I don't think you need to go down into the, it's cold enough.
30s are tough, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think but honestly, it's, do hard things kind of a thing. You do that. I literally step into it and I'm literally start laughing to myself. I'm in my garage and because it's so idiotic that I'm doing this. Like, I'm like, what am I doing? And then I literally get in, boom, it changes your mood like instantly. It takes you that groggy morning into just sort of this instant.
You're awake.
Yeah,
no question.
Yeah, and I know when I don't do it, it's like I'm just have this grogginess like for that first hour or two.
You're inspiring me. I literally have one in my basement. I don't do it that much. My wife does it more than I do. I got to get back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't do it. And what I told Erik was that I joined Restore, which is only a mile away. And I started my kind of like health journey in October of last year. before I left. Actually, I was kind of preparing. Actually, right after I told Erik, Erik was the first person I told that I was going to go on sabbatical. But it took me a while for everything to kick in. But I joined Restore, which is a membership place. I think it's a national chain because I needed some place to go. So,
Right.
like, I go to Restore, I do my red light, I do my sauna. They don't have cold plunge. They have a cryo thing, like a $250,000 cryo thing, which is absolutely ruthless. I don't do that much. And they do IVs and other stuff. So I needed excuses to get out of the house. That's actually what started me doing it. But I notice if I don't do red light and I don't do sauna and things like that, the cryo's different. Also, the IVs, like for hydration and macros and micros, like the IVs, I always thought it was weird. It was only for like hangovers. My first IV was like at the Trump with Mahoney and a bunch of other guys. The IVs are game changers with the concoctions that they can put in them, and they literally last a week or two. So it's been amazing. But yeah, you have, how often do you do red light and your PEMF mat at home?
Well, the routine is go walk across to my office, go down, do the cold plunge, come back up, make a coffee, go up. Then above the office is like this playroom that I call it the spa, where I've got all these little things set up.
Nice.
And I get on the red light. I actually put a walking pad under the red light so I can walk, get steps in while I'm doing this is insane. And then I have an oxygen, one of those oxygen things that fills the big thing next to that. I can literally get red light, be walking, and have the oxygen thing on. I mean,
Wait a minute. You bought the Brecca oxygen
oh
doodad?
yeah.
And then you got the jet fighter mask on and everything?
I mean, if anybody, my kids see the red light from down the other end of the hall and like, don't go down there. Like they don't even want to see that.
So hold on. So you walk, you do the oxygen while you're doing your red light.
Yeah.
That's actually
That's
brilliant.
multitasking. I love that.
Oh, I am. Yeah, it's my little time machine. I'm like, and then however long, and then I go back down, and my gym is 5 minutes away, and I'll do that at 5:30. I mean, that's my like ideal morning. Like if I can get all that, but of course that means you got to go to bed at 8. You literally,
you got to go to bed early.
You're sacrificing sleep. So,
how often do you use your PEMF mat?
I actually moved it into my bedroom, and I lay it down in the bed. But I don't like to leave it there and sleep on it all night. And it's only on for 20, 30 minutes. So, a couple times a week, in the summer less because you're outside with bare feet and all that stuff. But
yeah. And for anyone that doesn't know, a PEMF mat is essentially a grounding mat for those of us that don't get outside. We live in the Northeast. Rich is in Chicago. There's probably 5 months a year where bare feet is not encouraged outside. Although, sounds like Erik goes barefooted into the garage, which is negatively charged anyway. Did you know that concrete is naturally negatively charged?
Oh, well then, maybe that's working. So, yeah, it's a good routine. That's the ideal state, and then you try to, when you travel and stuff a little, you try to replicate as many of those, turn the shower to cold, whatever you can do. So I look at it as a spectrum, right? You're never going to be always perfect diet or whatever. So how close to the ideal can you get no matter where you are and what you're doing? And
I try 80% is my goal. Like for me, Erik, I cook, right? So cooking's a big deal for me. And then, Rich, you've heard it. I mean, I've cut drinking back by 75, 80%, but I don't have the gadgets in the house. Erik went long before I got involved and inspired me. And then of course, Dana is a buddy of mine and watching his transformation, but, it's neat, if you can afford it, it's 100% worth doing. But how much do you attribute your diet and your nutrition against all of the gadgetry and all the other stuff? Like, how do you kind of weigh which one you focus on, or if you're going to let one go, which one you actually let go?
I think you got nutrition has to be like first, like top.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to get that at least close to like 80%, the other things are probably not going to do a lot. But if you get the nutrition right, now it's all about the protein and this and that, and getting the calories maintenance level, or if you're trying to lose, slight deficit. And so I've
That's
toyed
awesome.
with all these things. So
Do you do any fasting or anything like that? Have you gotten into that?
I sometimes skip breakfast. Like I might try to wait until 11 or 12 to eat.
So like intermittent fasting, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been starting to do some longer fast, like a 3-day fast. I used to do every year. I used to do like 7 days, and I'm going to try to get back into it. But that 3-day fast has been really good for me. I'm going to try to be doing that more often.
What do
Because
you notice?
it says like just giving your body a chance. I think you need about 3 days to give your body a chance to start healing without having to process food and
So
just straight
you get,
water.
like, past the hungry phase and you just move into like, all right, you're in the zone. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
Doesn't feel you feel pretty good.
Three. Yeah, day three, you move into this like day two. At the end of day two, you move into this almost zen-like feeling. It's really weird. Like your body almost is like, okay, this is good. We can do this. Like you got to almost force yourself to stop it on the third day.
not everybody
Yeah,
knows.
because you feel pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, I'm type 1 diabetic, right, since I've been 22. So I take, I got a pod. I dialed in that a little bit too with a pod and a glucose monitor that talk to each other. So even that technology's gotten better. But yeah, so I don't know if I can get by with a 3-day fast. I mean, I probably could because I can just manage everything. But
You'd have to monitor. Yeah, it's different.
yeah. So
all right, so we're 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
Why don't we're going to reset for a split second here because there are some people that are going to probably listen to this that actually don't know who Erik Dodier is and don't know where he's leaving from or don't know what he's done because they may have never read any of my stuff or listened to any of this so Erik, why don't you take a minute and just kind of give your background? I mean, I know it, but take a minute or two, or as long as you want, and kind of just talk a little bit about who you are, what you've been up to, and kind of what you're doing and where you're at right now, and what the next, what your plan is, at least for the immediate, weeks or months.
Yeah. So the listenership as it rises, there's more people that don't know the whole history of yeah.
Maybe.
Well, real quick, T, and probably most people know, we started a business together in 1994 called PixelMEDIA. Obviously, prior to that, we had gone to the same junior high school until TJ left. I continued, and
nice to say he left. Yeah,
we reconnected. And again, he's already told all his stories, so I wouldn't replay that. But we reconnected at a company called Cabletron in the 92 or so. Or sorry, 93, 94, and then had this, kind of approach him about starting a business. He was building these multimedia things. So off we went as a multimedia company. And that led to various iterations of building websites and cold view, all the different technologies, which then led to working with the Demandware, which, Rich, you're wearing the shirt. That led us into the world tighter with commerce. Demandware is based up here in Boston, got a relationship with them. And then decided to go all in on Demandware, probably like 2014, 15, and just let everything else attrition away. And then Salesforce bought Demandware, and off we went. So we then became RafterOne, bought by Interpublic Group, IPG, about only 2 years ago.
2 years ago today, actually.
Oh, that's
no
right.
way.
Well, yeah. October, literally was like when the start of the quarter. They wanted to do it on the start of the quarter. So
yeah.
All a really awesome journey. Like really, you couldn't map it out any better. Last few years have been rough. Things slowed a bit, but it, from a overall every bit of the entrepreneurial journey, I think services is a hard business, but it is what it is. That's where we landed. So now, I find myself stepping away as, RafterOne's, Salesforce, that's the industry is going through a lot of change, but there's still tons and tons of opportunity. But it's the perfect time for me to step away, 30 years to the month that we had started. And I'm just ready. I'm 54, like teenage kids. It's just, otherwise you just kind of can keep your head down and do this forever. It's like, I've kind of been listening to you're not retiring from something, you're kind of retiring to something, right? So what's the next thing can retire to? That's where the uncertainty and anxiety comes from, is not knowing all right, how am I going to fill this time, and how am I going to have that structure to my day? Am I just going to all of a sudden start sleeping until 8 a.m. and getting up and, being less disciplined, right? And all the things
so
I'm
funny
talking
you say till 8 a.m. Like that's so late. Like,
oh my God. Well, that would feel, I feel like my day's over if I'm not out of bed at 7:30, so that's just where I'm at now. And honestly, the best check back value we can probably bring is how do you navigate this journey, right? And it's a real thing. mean, some people get, you know, a lot of anxiety. I don't know if you guys did, or
Yeah.
how deep in the trunch you went till you found that next thing. But you know, even now there's some days I'm like, wow, I don't know how I'm gonna like get that energy going every day, because when I have extra time, you get so many options, you almost stagnate. So, you know, woe is us, right? That's such a but you know, I'll be
What was us?
yeah.
So literally, you didn't catch it, but today is 2 years ago that we sold to IPG, who's a stock exchange trading company. But dude, I dealt with the first 2 weeks by pretty much crying randomly. I think what killed me was your last days tomorrow was my last. I went in the office for my last day and worked the whole day there and filmed myself walking out, which I've never shared because I was a fucking blubbering idiot the whole way out. And no, the first couple of weeks was horrific. Like the first quarter was, it was terrifying, right? It's like, you know, you don't have anything to worry about, so now you worry about anything and everything. It's almost the opposite. Like we were conditioned, Erik and I, for so long. Like we knew what our worries were every day. We almost knew how to get in front of all the worries and kind of address them. There was almost a comfort in the anxiety of the day. Now there's like an uncomfortable anxiety where it's like, you know, I literally don't have anything to do next week. It's supposed to rain 3 days. Like I'm literally worried
Great.
about what I'm going to do next week, which I don't talk about.
How was your Rich?
Mine was a little. I mean, mine was a little different than you guys. I mean, I do remember. I remember signing. Like I specifically remember being at William Blair in a conference room overlooking the Chicago River, meeting with the board, and then deciding to sign with Capgemini. And I cried like right there. Like when I signed that I was selling the business to Capgemini, like that was a very emotional moment for me. You know, but I stayed at Cap for 4 years. And so, and I mean, I'm kind of stupid, right? I mean, don't take that the wrong way, but I'm loyal to a fault. I probably would have stayed forever if things didn't happen a little differently that kind of pushed me out. Like I always believe things happen for a reason, right? So my position got eliminated in North America. And so I was kind of pushed out and I was super upset, like to your point, right? Like I was like, I can't, yeah, that's a story for a different time. But and then, like, almost the day that was supposed to be my last day, no announcement had been made, nothing had been done. Like, and I was super upset about that, you know, this. And then they decided, okay, we'll put you on part-time for like 4 months. So July, August, September, October. Yeah, 4 months. So I went part-time for 4 months. So that kind of helped my transition.
Yeah.
And I mean, TJ, you're smarter. And I think, you know, what you're saying to Erik, I didn't really do that. Like I was like people told me take 90 days, like, you know, just think about what you want to do, this or that. But I kind of had this weird transition where I was just working, I don't know, I think I was 8 hours a week for 4 months, which is kind of a weird thing because it's like something to do, but not a lot. And, you know, so I had this big transition time, but then I had put in my contract that I could start doing other things. So I started doing boards right away. So I didn't have a big off time, right? So I was 4 months where I was working 8 hours at Cap and then I started doing boards right away, right? So I started, you know, working with, you know, Dylan at Phenom, right? And doing some other stuff. And then I got involved in Hero and, you know, so I didn't take a big time off. And honestly, people told me to, but I didn't want to. I was kind of a little, like you're saying, anxiety. I was a little afraid of that. Like, I'm kind of a person that wants to stay busy, right? So, and then it's a different busy, right? Because it's not like you're saying, Erik, like it's not go in the office every day, have a routine, see your people, feel this. I don't mean weight in a negative way, but feel the weight of I have all these people to support and I'm running a business and there's a culture here and I care about these people. I care about their families. And so I'm going to get busy, right? And all of a sudden when that was off, and it was different because I was at Cap, right? So I kind of felt a big relief, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I was part of this big behemoth organization and I was fighting battles internal and you know, I'm like, I just want to be in front of customers. Like, I don't want this internal, you know, bullshit, right? Like, come on, you know, so I felt actually, I didn't think I was going to, but I felt a big sense of relief. then followed by anxiety about what I'm going to do. And then I jumped into, a bunch of things, and I'm still doing that, right? And I'm finishing up writing my book, and I'm doing the sales, platform. And so I'm the kind of person that needs to keep busy. So, to your point, I didn't take time. I probably should have. I think what you're saying, TJ, is, deal with the anxiety and kind of live with yourself a little bit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's funny how my go-to, any topic that I kind of start getting interested in, my go-to is like I go to YouTube and I just start, and you just sort of find these little, and you just start filling your brain with different ideas and things and different people talking about the same topic until you kind of assimilate, okay, this is what I want to take from all these different things. And I found some different, it's funny what starts finding you though, once that algorithm takes hold,
Sure.
So.
Well, it's funny because when I don't have anything to do, Erik knows this better than anybody. If I'm not busy, I'm usually not using my time wisely. I'm usually in trouble or engaging in activities that one would consider unsustainable. And this has been like an exercise for me. I mean, I have Shannon now. Before I didn't really have a gravity kind of pull.
Well,
But
you said, remember, like whenever business would slow a little bit, we'd have to find stuff for people to do. And he goes, idle time is the devil's playground.
Exactly.
It stuck with me. Like, I'm like, and so, how like you invent project when things start just like, are we going to work on that internal thing? And they had real value, but you'd give that up in a second to work on some client stuff. You know what I mean? And I remember you said that. So
it's been an exercise for me to like be good. I also, Rob was here yesterday and I was like, sabbaticals are expensive. Like they're expensive. And, I always, people that are going to take a little bit of time off, I have a lot of conversations where I'm trying to guide people through that because it can sneak up on you. But, so what are your plans for, let's just take us through, I don't know.
Yeah.
The next 2 weeks. Let's be simple. What are your plans for the next 2 weeks, Erik?
Well, I keep trying to write down like this perfect schedule. All right, I'll get up at this time and I'll do this, and then I'll ride my bike, and I keep trying to like map it out, and then it's like it just doesn't materialize. So I'm trying to figure out like, can I just box my time because I want to still have a morning routine. I still like getting on my computer, and even if I'm just researching, like checking out my kids' grades at school, or like all this little stuff you just do on your laptop that's kind of fun to chase. And then have like fun time where it's like, all right, now I can go ride my bike, go do the golf thing, go grab coffee with somebody, and so kind of block it out and then try to have an evening. And so it's kind of like I'm trying to piece it together, but I'm not in it yet because I still have a handful of calls smattered throughout the day of things. But I'm thinking next week I'll see. And then you talked about TJ working some travel in. Kids are into sports now, so try to make sure I go to that stuff, be more present, right? That's a big thing right now, is like be present, not thinking about, I'm physically here, but I'm thinking about work. I'm the call I got tomorrow, the next thing. I mean, that's just been a way of life, so.
Well, you're going to have a new Sunday scary, right? Which is what the hell am I going to do with nothing to do, right? So.
But it's weird. That one is the one that I kind of like I was up at the shutting down things at the lake, and I'm like, it was Sunday. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay up here because like I don't have that urgency to get back and be ready for the day and all that. And I feel like that's probably one of the great things is you won't dread like Monday in the same way because it'll be filled. It might be filled with stuff you're doing, but like you want to do it. And that might be one that I got to think like Sunday must be like totally freeing now than what it used to be. I mean,
it does. So what happened with me? I mean, I'm for anyone not following closely, I'm this 278 or 79 today. I often don't know what day it is. And I know that sounds weird, but there's almost this cathartic freeness that I have where it took me a while to get okay with thinking Thursday was Saturday and that Sunday was Monday, right? Which just happened to me. Like I was off by 2 days this last weekend, and it is. But again, I stay, I use my calendar. I would share it right now, but there's a bunch of, I have Shannon's calendar in here too, but I find myself putting everything on the calendar, and no matter what, like I'm talking with Reed Norton at noon, I got an IV at 11. I'm helping Erik. I think I told you I have a friend that sort of cracked the code on something on the Transparency and Costs Act, and I'm helping him respond to an RFP. But I find, Erik, that I actually literally, like, I put everything except for my workouts. I put everything that I do during the week in the calendar, because I actually want Shannon to know what's going on too, and then she puts all of her stuff in so that we can schedule day dates.
Oh, I put my workouts in for sure. Yeah, because I go to the gym, right? So I put my workout in.
Pivot real quick, because it's the first time we're all together doing this. The first time I met Rich, TJ, do you remember the first time you met Rich? Because I remember. And
I do. I met Rich for the first time at Demandware for training at a folding table. Him and Dave Barkuman and
Burlington
Marco,
or whatever, right?
Yeah, Marco was doing the training class.
Well, it's funny because I don't feel like we had a relationship with Rich. However, because that would have been before Salesforce bought Demandware, right?
Correct.
So we weren't really in the same. Maybe we went to some exchanges, but I met Rich when Salesforce bought Demandware. Like that 2016, that fall, I went to Dreamforce. Like TJ and Kevin Brown didn't go because they're like, you go out, check it out. Of course, 3 months later, they didn't know what they were doing with it, right? It's an early acquisition. Yeah. But Rich, that's when I'm like, all right, what's going on? And you were in some like conference room. It was at I forget what the hotel was.
The Palace, right?
Well, it might have been the Palace, but they had the other one on like 3rd Street in where all the partners hang out. Like it was just a partner hotel.
Oh yeah, it was like the Marriott or something.
Yeah, the black. It's like black, and you go up the escalator, and Rich comes out of this room, and there's always like we're gonna let's get all the Demandware partners together and talk about the future and all that. And of course, we met coming out, and I think you like, and I never really met you, like and Rick and TJ had talked a lot, about Lyons and all that stuff. And you gave me your card. I remember like probably texting TJ, hey, T, I just, caught up with Rich, whatever. And I knew you guys had met, but I don't remember us, TJ, talking about a relationship. But this was a classic scenario with TJ and I. Like, I would meet people a lot. I was usually the first one through the door, right? Because I was the official sales guy. And this was early on through kind of later. And then I would kind of hand off to TJ. And then next thing I know, I'm like, now you guys are best friends. I'm like, wait, I thought I met Rich like first and said here, and his card. And the next thing you know, TJ, you swooped in. There was another time it happened, which I won't get into, but TJ would always sort of, what do we say? I'd spend a minute for every minute I spent with someone. TJ ended up spending 3 hours because once the customer, the prospect became a customer, TJ would then cozy right up, and
that's great.
Rightfully so. And he did it in a real, sincere, authentic way. I mean, TJ, you became really tight with customers in a way that I usually didn't as much, to be honest. I mean, you just want to talk shop with them and guide them and all that stuff. And I was usually trying to slightly get off to the next thing, which probably wasn't the right thing. But I was lucky to have you, TJ, to do that because you had the patience to navigate all that stuff. So
I appreciate that. And I loved it, right? You knew that. And there's been a lot of instances where Erik has spent the first 5 or 10 minutes with somebody and I have spent hours to years with them afterwards. So
it was
not all storytelling worthy, but
it was always interesting. And then sometimes I would really tee up TJ. Oh yeah, you got to meet TJ. It's kind of an acquired taste, I'd say. Like, I set it up so that when they met him, they were like already who's this guy? And then once they met, T, you're very authentic, and the way you come across. So they really gravitated to that. But that went back to like one of our first sales calls, right? When I brought TJ to a meeting, like one of the first ones we went to together, and he like swore in the room, and I'm like, what are you doing? We're in front of a customer, you got to put on the whole. And he's just being himself, and like they asked how much something would be, and he's like, "Oh, that's going to be a shitload of money." Like like one of those comments in a real sales corporate meeting. I think it was AskCom Timeplex, and next thing you know, they didn't look at me the rest of the meeting. They just wanted to hear from him. So like, all right, that's the guy we're going to get the real answers from. So.
And we signed him, and we did a project. We did AskCom Timeplex and Bus Tech, their trade show presentations in parallel, and went out to I think it was called Networld at the time.
Interop, yeah, Network World.
And yeah, Interop and Network World. But yeah, but by the way, Erik's telling a story from December of 1994, right there.
Wow.
When
Right. Yeah.
I think I actually swore in front of Banyan Vines, which was the first job we ever landed and the first check we ever mailed back.
All right, and then the other revelation here is this whole tattoo thing. When Rich came to Dover, New Hampshire to get a tattoo, and that was a real breakthrough, right? You guys, you guys weren't hanging out like that, and I'm like, Rich is gonna take your word to come all the way to Dover, New Hampshire, and go for a tattoo. And then when I found out what it was, I was like, wow,
It became big fast.
Yeah, that was.
But that was I think the Pabs were probably when we spent the most time together.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. The LA Pab at shop.org, and the Intercontinental, my first Pab with you guys, you, Adam, JB. It was Kevin Eschelberger from Blue Acorn's first Pab. Cesar was running them. Catherine Murphy and Jim Lynch were still at the helm. Griff would show up. I mean, executives never show up to Pabs, but that was actually, and Rich, I was fucking petrified at that Pab meeting. I was so honored when you guys added me to the WhatsApp group so we could shit talk the Pab while everything was going on. So, but no, there's 1,000 stories. But Rich, I'll tell you what. Normally, we like our guests to ask us questions. I don't think Erik actually has any questions for me. He knows everything.
He knows everything, right?
Anything he would want to ask, I probably wouldn't be willing to answer. But Rich, this is an odd thing. Erik and I literally, for those that don't know, we were 50-50 partners for literally 28 of our 30 years. 50-50. Even when PE came in, we kept a massive portion, but we were still 50-50 on our ownership, and we're still actually 50-50 in a couple of other endeavors we're on. So, which is unheard of, right? For anyone that's been an entrepreneur. Everybody wants leverage, and I think what we agreed to in the beginning was that if we can't convince each other that it's a good idea one way or the other, then we just agreed we wouldn't do it.
Right.
And it started rough. In the beginning, I was type A, super aggressive, and he was a super nice guy and, didn't have a lot of bite to him. And then over the years, he became more like me and I became more like him. And we kind of passed through. And then I became the really nice, soft guy and the leader. And then he became, the executive that, once in a while didn't want to put up with my shit and would tell me.
We got our office downtown Portsmouth, and one day, we were all tech, right? That's what we were servicing at the time. And this Boston Business Journal had every tech story. So I'd kind of scan through and pick out companies and reach out to them, whatever. And one day I'm like reading the Boston, and he looks back and goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm reading the Boston Business, the newspaper, the Boston, whatever it was. And he goes, "You can read at home at night. You should be making call." Like, he literally comes in and like yells at me because I'm literally like,
pick up the phone.
I did. I was like, you fucking sit there and you read magazines all day. Like, what the fuck is that all about?
Well,
in hindsight, I was,
but the reality was, that would be like 11 there was no virtual meetings, no online. You literally drove to, a meeting at 11, a meeting at 1, and a meeting at 3, because they were all about an hour apart. You had a map in your car. I had a cell phone that, the antenna went out and it was a bag, and then it became, this is this is 95. I don't even think we had email when we started. We had to put up an own email server in our office. Remember in Evan, and it's just, that was a long time ago. So,
well, here's one for you guys. Ready? I'm just gonna get started easy. I'll tee you guys up. A lot of people. Think about how I've heard so many times from people like, don't work with a friend. Like, you should never work with a friend. It's going to ruin your relationship, right? People say that all the time, right? And you guys, what would you say to someone? What would you say to someone starting out with, like, you guys are equal owners, 50-50, right? I didn't have that. I was majority the whole time, right? What's some advice? Like, you guys had to go through a lot together, but what's some advice if you have two buddies and they're going to get in business together? What do you tell them looking back?
I know exactly what I'm about to say. You're probably, I don't know, T, if you're going to say the same thing, but
go ahead.
We weren't friends. I mean, at the time, I mean, we knew
We
each
were
other.
acquaintances. We were
Yeah,
acquaintances. Like I've known Erik since junior high, and but I only knew who he was. He grew up in a different part of town. He like had an actual house and played golf and tennis, and I was a derelict. And he was a
yeah,
house kid on the south end. I was an apartment kid on the north end. But no, you're
yeah,
right. We became friends, but we became friends as business partners. Like there's nobody in the world other than my wife right now that I trust to this day more than Erik, unquestionably. But we don't hang out. We literally hang out. Let's just take the last year out of it, right? We might have hung out 4 times a year outside of the office.
yeah. Yeah,
That
when I
Um,
makes
say we
sense.
weren't friends, we didn't dislike each other. We just didn't know each other that
Yeah.
well. But once I saw like kind of the work he was doing, and I kind of always TJ had all this like you kind of knew he was very smart. You know, even in high school we weren't. But so when I saw the work he was doing at Cabletron, and then what I wanted to do, and again, I've been reading Inc. magazine since I was like 15. How can I find my way into a business you can start? And the one thing about professional services is you don't need a lot of money to start a consulting business, right? If you professional services, I mean, in theory, you just got to go find some customers that trust you enough to start the wheel going, and that's how we
That's
did it.
awesome.
But we grew. I'd say we through the experiences of the business, we grew to sort of respect and like each other more because he was handling a lot of the obviously delivery stuff, and I was handling the logistics of the business. So it's kind of a dependency almost that you need to make it
Yeah.
work. And the fact that we were both equal, there was never any kind of resentment or anything like any of that stuff. And it's like,
It's great.
let's just go all in. So
You know what's funny? The 50-50 thing, if I had to say one thing that came out of it, was that we never felt like we were under or over leveraged against each other. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think you can measure the value and comfort that comes with something like that, right?
Yeah.
You know, Rich is the boss, so when he puts his foot down, it is what it is. And you know, we did become friends, but we became we became work buddies. Like it's funny. I look at Erik like a dad and a big brother and a little brother and a son all together, right? Like that's the type of relationship that it is. Like my kids are not buddies, or I wouldn't even say they're
Yeah.
friends, they're siblings. And I have more of like a parental sibling
That's cool.
affection for him. And sometimes he's my dad and sometimes I'm the dad, and in the most respectful of ways, because you have to be gentle with each other. And unfortunately, we learned that the hard way. He was always gentle in the beginning, and I was, Rich, we talked, I was not. I was a practitioner who just happened to be owner and just happened to have staff members. And
Yeah.
I grew up in the yelling era, so I was very aggressive, and I was a dick in the beginning. I was a dick to everybody, but I did good work. And I think what Erik saw in me is he's like, fuck, I can sell what he's doing. Like if I could just get him to calm down and rope him a little bit. I was like a Bronco that needed to be broken. And that was what we agreed to. I said, if you can sell it, I can do it.
That's
And that
awesome.
was literally the promise we made each other. And we had trust. I think that was the biggest thing, is
Trust.
there
I
was
mean, I
never
think
been a
that's key.
moment.
I think it's
Yeah.
key. And let me ask you this, because you brought it up. I mean, sometimes I think new entrepreneurs, like, they don't realize you're going to go through hard times. They don't realize that it's going to be hard all the time, like almost every day, right? Like I have young guys like, hey, I'm feeling anxious. I'm like, get used to it, because you're going to feel more anxious as you get bigger. It doesn't go away. It's not like you get there and you're like, wow, I can breathe now. You're just like able to handle more stress. How would you say you guys got through the hard times, right? Like, how did you support each other? How did you guys, 50-50, how did you guys support each other? How'd you get through the hard times?
do you want to? Well, I I think that when you're living it, there's always one next problem to solve, right? Whatever it is. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small, but there's always like the number one thing. Let's go. We got to find an office. We got to get that first employee. We got to figure out how to pay people. We got to figure out how to hire somebody. We got to figure out how to like do pay. Like what's
Right.
the next thing? And in his world, it was more like as the technology was evolving, like what's the next thing he's got to learn. So it's almost like you just keep looking at the next thing. It's kind of the one step at a time, right? Like
It's great.
I can't solve the problem that's 10 steps ahead. I just got to solve this one, right? And then after that one's solved, there'll be another one and another one and another one, and that's it. You don't really spend time on patting each other on the back because you don't have time, right? You just like, we get on to the next thing. So I think it's just looking a little more of what's right in front of you and
That's
solving
great.
that. And then the next thing will unfold and the next thing will unfold. I don't know. That's how I've.
No, I think that's great advice. No, I
Um,
think that's great advice.
For me, I think because we had some, there was some tough times, in the early days and then in the mid days, right? Like when we first got going, the web was nothing, right? We were doing demo diskettes and CD-ROMs, and then the web came along. But I think the thing, besides what Erik said, which I agree with, is that you just got to solve the thing in front of you and not worry about all the other things. And it took a long time for us to realize that there's always going to be 10 problems. Right. I just need to solve the first 3 that are in front of me because they're in parallel, and I don't worry about the other 7. And if I get to them today or tomorrow or next week or next month, or if they go away, which those 7 other issues do go away, it's fine. And you have to be comfortable that if you are ethically addressing these things and going at them, you just have to have a comfort in yourself. But I think the real game changer for us, Rich, was that there are moments over the 30 years where we could come to each other and like church and almost like just be honest that like I don't know what to do here. Like I'm lost. Like I either fucked up and I don't know how to fix it, or like I don't know what the next step is. And I distinctly remember a dozen times that Erik has come to me and been like, because we've had issues with selling and and getting things in, and times when I've gone to Erik as well. And having somebody that you can let your guard down with and have that conversation and like just get in a room with a coffee, which him and I have done 100 times, and just brainstorm one way or the other without any judgment. Like he's come to me like just exhausted, right? And we get in a room and it's like, wow, this was really helpful, because if nothing else, we wrote it down. And then I've done the same thing because,
and I think people don't realize that, right? I mean, it's not easy and it can be lonely. And I mean, you guys are 50-50, which at least you could, go talk to each other, right? Because I don't think people realize the vulnerability, the fear, the anxiety, and just there's sometimes where you're like, I don't know if we're doing the fucking right thing. I don't know, right? And just to talk it through, I mean, I think that's awesome.
Well, what's interesting. I don't know if how Erik did it, because we don't really share our personal lives together. But like, I never ever brought work home to my wife, my first wife. I was married for 13 years. Like for our for our first 16 years, I was with somebody, and I never talked about like work. And she'd always be like, "You don't what's going on? You don't ever talk about it." I'm like, no. No. So I never brought it home. So he was literally my only professional outlet, because none of this shit existed. That I didn't have the friends that I have now. I didn't have the maturity that I have now. And I would go home and just stew on this shit alone and freak myself out till I got back in the office, and he'd be blaring fucking Enigma. And as I walk in, and I'm like, all right, I'm home, right? It's like I'd sit at my desk and like everything would wash away. So, he was my only outlet for, 25 years of the 30 we were together for work-related stuff.
No, I think it's important for people to know.
Well, the only way to make the anxiety go away is to work on the problem, right? 'Cause if you just sit
ultimately, for sure.
Yeah, you got to like, and even if, just move the needle somehow, So if you're working on the problem, it's like you feel like you're at least moving closer to the solution. But
I do think there's that moment where, for a minute, let's say, to acknowledge like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Because think about it, like, I didn't know. I mean, people think like you kind of made it, right? You made it. I mean, up until we sold the company to Capgemini, I was never thinking we made it.
Right.
Every day you got to sell another deal. Every day you got to deliver another project. I mean, you don't make it. Like you're kind of, I always felt on the brink of like a project goes bad, we're done. Like that kind of moment by moment, right? And so I think focusing on the next moment is important, because that's all you can do.
Funny you say that. So I just wrote that post recently where I talked about practitioner and leader and entrepreneur. I think success is an outsider's view of us, not
Yeah.
our view of ourselves. And I remember when somebody called Erik and I entrepreneurs one time. We got in some magazine. I don't even remember. We literally were in the office 2 weeks ago. We just threw all those magazines away. But I remember when somebody called us entrepreneurs, and Erik like didn't believe it. And then it wasn't for like 10 years later that he's like, yeah, I guess I'm an entrepreneur, right? And it's like, I never think of us as being successful either. I think success is somebody else's view of what you're doing. I think if you think you're successful, you might want to check yourself.
That's a
But
good point.
because success is something we're always striving for, but never thinking about. And somebody else has to look at us and actually say that, I think, for it to
Yeah.
be real or feel real. So,
Yeah. Let me ask you, I don't know, we're at least one more question I got here. Talk to me, as you talk about success and stuff, obviously success has a lot of different measures, right? Financial, but also people and culture. And I'd love to hear you guys kind of riff a little bit on culture and what, culture was always important to me. And obviously it changes over time. It changes as you hire people. It changes as you change practices. But what was riff a little bit on like, you had Pixel for a long time and you had great people that wanted to come work with you and stay with you. Like, what would you say about culture? Because I think sometimes it's overlooked as people start businesses.
I
I'll let
mean,
Erik
it
go.
was it was in the beginning. It's there was no, you just all worked in the office. Everybody
Right.
came in every day. So it's just the nature of how you build a culture or create a culture is so different now. Like
Yeah, with the Zoom and stuff and you're not
right.
together, I don't know how you do it.
But like early on, it was just you're together so much. They see how you work. You see, like they see that you're putting it. Like it's just everyone's just sort of committed to it, and anybody that didn't want to be on that train kind of self-selected out, right? So it was almost like you just kind of like create it because you're all showing up. If the founders are showing up every day and they're there early and they're, we had to be there early. We had to unlock the door. So it's like, we didn't have like key card access and all this stuff. It's like if I'm not there, no one's working. So I'm like, all right, I'll be there. So, but then it gets harder. You get big, but we were in the office all 100% until like 2010, 11, 12, 13 in that range. And then maybe it's like, okay, we need this skill set. They can be a little remote. I mean, because even the technology wasn't there yet. So I think the culture forms around the founders early on because you're all together in the beginning. And then later you had to be more intentional with, your core values and all that. But again, it's only so good as you reinforce it. And I wasn't always the best at that, right? Because I get my head down doing work and I want to be doing stuff. And so it's hard. It's hard to. I always find it hard to create the culture is like what it is. It's not what you just say. Oh, let's just put this on the wall, and it's harder later as you get bigger and people are more remote. I think, but
I think
I
that's a
don't know.
good point. I think people put words on a page or words on a website, but they don't mean anything, right? Because the culture is what you're living.
Yeah, yeah, but
So for me, I hate every time somebody would ask me what our culture was. I hate the culture word. I hate the idea that you've got to create this thing that everybody loves and is rowing into. And I hated it in interviews. When people would ask me what our culture is like, I would say I'm literally one of the two owners. I've done this for 25 years. I'm probably not the guy to ask. You'd have to ask the people that like culture is like a thing for them. Because when you're in a leadership role, you at least for us, we're just doing what we do every day the way we do it. We embody honesty and ethics and hard work and resilience and showing up every day, and being in early and being there late and being available at nighttime. So,
But
I
I
don't know.
think
I
that
think
is culture. All
culture.
those things you're leading by example, but I think
I,
that's culture. There's a reason you have people that worked with you, for you, and stayed with you, right?
yeah,
Yeah, what I just think culture is a hard thing to answer. I think that culture is a vibe, and some people add to it, and some people subtract to it. You know, I've
Yeah.
been criticized for being too friendly with my staff in the early days, right? Like they weren't just, I'd have 40 people, and 30 of them, like we'd go out on a Friday, and they'd come to my house for keg parties. I'd have 300 people. I'd have my entire company and their spouses at our keg parties at the house. But I
And
think culture.
I would be Erik. I'd be like, dude, you can't do that. These are employees.
Well,
That was Erik. Erik was like, you kind of being a little too friend. Like, do you need to be friends with everybody? And I was like, I kind of do.
oh, yeah, yeah.
And I think culture is just this ethereal thing, and I think it is what it is. And I think that you can't create a culture. You have to embody a culture.
I like that.
And if you can embody all the values that matter to you and hold everyone accountable to them, which is what we struggled to do because you always have to mature it. If you can embody the culture, then you have a culture. You can't make it. You can't put 8 sentences on the wall and make it magic. You can't do the rah-rah in the monthly meetings and hope everyone, it is what people represent themselves as. And you just have to make sure you have the right people that
Yeah.
actually represent the attitudes and the activities and sort of credentials that you expect out of a good staff member while you're also having fun. So
Hey, so Rich, you've gone the whole arm sleeve tattoo now.
I do.
This will be a teaser because we probably can't get through it all, but like I have no tattoos. And I only bring up tattoos. I think it was a connecting thing for you guys. And Rich, you've gone down the tattoo path, what, in the last 5 years?
Yeah, it's been really recent. I mean, I started with the back and then moved down. Well, I did the chest and the shoulder, then moved down the arm.
All
Yeah.
right, well, T, you tell me how you want to close, but I'm thinking about it now. I don't know what I want to do. And
Come on,
like,
it's got to be a
like,
pixel. Come on.
well, that's
thank you, Rich.
we talked about it, but the arm sleeve is such like a huge flex right now. That's the new term, the flex. Like it just seems so cool. But
But you could start small. I mean,
what's funny about, and it relates back, is like I got to figure out if that's me. Like I bought these those fake tattoos you can get and you put them on
yeah.
just for fun. And I can't remember if we were on a vacation, and then vacation too, that people come up on you the beach and they'll put one on. And I'm like, oh yeah. I think I put the barbed wire or something on, just for like fun, and it never wears off. But I can't, like, you have to have that self impression of yourself. Like, am I a guy with tattoos? You know what I mean? And every time I even I can't look at it for more than a few days, and it just doesn't feel right. So I got to find the right thing. But
Well, it's got to have meaning. I would say it has to have meaning to you, right? Like that's why I waited into my 50s before I got a tattoo.
Yeah. Well, the relevance here is like how the three of us have quite different, styles, personalities, and everything. And it's so funny what we can each do and get away. Like if I wrote LinkedIn posts like TJ, literally they'd come get me and put me in a straitjacket, right? Take me away, because that's not me. But it's TJ, right? Rich, you're doing your training thing, and like it's funny how like we all bring these personalities, but when you start to move outside of it, it's uncomfortable for you, but also other people are like, hey, what's going on with this person? They're acting different, right? And I feel like I'm entering this new phase of where I want to venture into other things. So who knows? We'll figure out a tattoo.
So here's a
I think
here's
we
a
have
theory.
to find TJ. You should design a thing that we can all get. Like Garf was it. I mean, there's a few people that would be like, yeah, I'll get. But like,
Actually, you know what? Yeah, well,
it could
yeah.
be like a play on on demand wear or something that connects us all, because we do all. There's many of us that have a common experience that wraps around demand wear. But it would be cool. It could be a little Easter egg, something you hide somewhere. It doesn't have to be prominent, but wouldn't that be fun? Like that would be badass.
It would be, and I already have a dozen ideas for it that I've got written down. So Erik, on your tattoo thing, here's a fallacy. I don't know if that's right. Here's like a wives' tale. That's probably not PC anymore either. But I don't think we ever should think that we stop evolving and maturing in different ways. And I think that I love the uncomfortableness that you're talking about, but I also know, because I went through it, that you're moving into a stage where, you're going to be different, right? You're going to mature, as hard as it is to hear that, like in your own way and in your own path. And you're going to be forced to deal with and think about and accommodate things that you haven't had to, because you have had the luxury of a constant distraction by being an owner operator.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the reason that the tattoo or the temps don't really strike you is because they don't have any meaning to you.
Yeah, it's probably true.
I think a good way to start, which we didn't talk about when you were here, is that I'll order some. So Erik wants the new school logo, which is this PXL. I have the old school logo. I'll get some temps in different sizes, and let's see if that feels different on you. Because Erik talked about doing one on the inside of his bicep.
Yeah.
And if it feels different on you, and it's in a place that is personal to you, but I think it'll matter and make a difference. But I also think we all have to come to terms. We're all in our 50s. Rich is going to be 60 next year. I don't think we ever stop evolving and maturing and changing.
100%.
I mean, if you look at Rich and I's relationship since we became close, right? It's only been 8 years. He was clean shaven and bald, and there wasn't a single thing on his skin. And now he looks like Moses. And I would say he's probably spent 60 hours in a tattoo chair. But, I don't know. It's an interesting thing.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, it's funny, like dealing with younger guys, and in one of my leadership groups, like TJ said, I'll be 60 next year, but I was telling those guys, I'm like, don't wait till this was a few years ago, but don't wait till you're 56 to let people know who you are. Right. And correct. I still do feel like I'm living into myself. Right. And the tattoo was a comfortable thing. Like, for me to be like, I like it and it means something to me, and it doesn't mean as much what other people think. Cause I mean, Dave, but Dave. Dave's like, don't get tattoos. Like, what if Augusta calls you and they want to give you a membership to Augusta, and then you have tattoos and you can't get in? And I mean, I thought about that for a second because it is old school there. But then I was like, then fuck them.
Right.
Right. I mean, then I don't want to be in. Of course, I want to be in, but you know what I mean? Like, I do feel like, TJ, you're bringing up a great point that I'm becoming more comfortable in my own skin. And I mean, I'll be 60, right? It's not like it happened before, but more and more I feel like I'm on my own side, if that's a word that means something to me, where I'm feeling more comfortable, right? I don't have to win all the time, right? I don't have to be right all the time. Like, I can just be a little more comfortable, and it's a nice thing. And I think, Erik, it'll be great to hear how you evolve as you're kind of settling in to this new Erik, I guess.
Well, if there's ever more of a sign that we're part, where we've evolved to, I've got literally a message on my screen forcing me to reboot my computer in like 8 minutes. It's like, welcome to, which I can probably delay, but I'm afraid if I hit the button, it'll, T, first of all, I'm glad you just sort of sprung this. I knew as soon as you texted me, I'm driving here and you're like, hey, can you be free at 9, have a good connection? I'm like, all right, he's going to spin up a little bit. I didn't know if you wanted to just do 10 minutes to kind of document the moment. I didn't know you'd have Rich actually scheduled, who's a couple hours behind and all that.
We're documenting the moment, baby.
It went by, but hold on. We're 1:07 in. Shocking how fast this felt.
Like an hour 7, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, an hour 7. Like, it literally feels like, it feels like we've been, like, I think we could do this for another hour.
We're just getting started. I feel bad
for the listeners, an hour 7, if they're hanging in.
It doesn't matter if they listen. We live off of one rule here: purity over perfection, and this episode only has to touch one person to matter. So,
exactly.
Erik,
it's touched me, by the way. So,
good.
Thank you guys, and
right.
congratulations.
So 2 people.
How about you?
2 people.
Guys?
No, I'm a new person, but I want to say to you guys, like, congratulations, right? I mean, it's a big deal. And, this is, I don't know if you'd call this an end, but it is kind of, because you guys will both be out. And so congratulations on what you built. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, the people, honestly, I have nothing. I mean, it's been a great experience. Honestly, the whole 30 years is like the total entrepreneurial arc journey that, it's funny, like the law of attraction. It's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Well, guess what, Eric? You did. And the good, the bad, the ugly. Like sometimes you gotta be careful what you sort of manifest, because it comes at you in ways you don't think. Like, all right, you want to be an entrepreneur? Here you go. Here's 30 years of your life of torture, Like one other story, I always said, T, we should be like, let's be $100 million company in by the time we're 20 years, right?
That was our 10-year goal.
Yeah. Well, because it just seemed like that was a good number, right? I didn't realize how slow professional services seems to grow, right? It's like very methodic, but like, all right, literally in 2014, I added up all our revenue from each year. And I'm talking 20, like just the first year was like $500,000.
Yeah.
And guess what? So I manifested to be $100 million company in 20 years. If you add up all our revenue, guess what it was in the 20 years? Almost exactly like 98 million or 100 million.
No way.
So like when you manifest something, you got to be careful, because like, I didn't mean take 20 years. I meant in a single year in 20 years.
Right.
So
you have to be careful kind of what you put out there, because it happens.
Yeah.
Well, it's the genie's lamp, right?
Intention's a powerful thing.
Yeah. So it's for sure. We can talk more on that. But T, I appreciate you just sort of springing in, because honestly, if you had scheduled it, I probably would have been thinking about it a lot more and where we were going. But
I know you well. You did the radio show.
So.
Listen, I just want to say thank you for coming on. I know I kind of sprung this on you. I didn't even tell Rich we had a guest today, so I sprung it on Rich too.
All right, perfect.
And because Rich and I actually talked a couple days ago, but I love you to death. Congratulations. I'm excited for what's next for you. I'm literally only a 15-minute ride away from you in a combustion engine vehicle. Yeah. And I love you to death. Rich, I love you to death. I appreciate you hanging in and asking some great questions. For anybody still hanging on here, thanks for listening to another episode of Tea with Rich with our guest Erik Dodier, who is a day and a half away from retiring.
Thanks, Eric.
Sorry, stepping away, taking a sabbatical. He'll come up with some new words next time we talk to him, and we'll get you on again here in the future and see how it goes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, all right. Great to do this, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Don't hang up yet, bud. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.